Today I'm going to wrap up the series on my band's song, Grave.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways. I feel like I can't escape. Over and over again, over and over again. I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm buried in shame. I feel like I can't escape. Over and over again, over and over again. I've been digging my grave.
By giving you a complete rundown of how I did the vocals. So let's jump into the video. So before we jump into Pro Tools, I want to talk to you a little bit about the vocal chain. My vocal sound depends a lot on my vocal chain, so it's super important. For this album, I recorded on the Avantone CV12, the Taylor Swift mic. But I really like the way it sounds. I think it sounds great. It's a 2 mic. It's warm. It's got a lot of character. It's on the cheaper end, so it is an affordable option for anyone wanting to jump in and get a 2 mic. Then after that, we got Neve 511 preamp, a Cappy BT50, which is an API 550 EQ, probably boosting high end and maybe cutting a little bit of 1.5K out. That's typically what I do with it. Then running into a Hairball 1176 Rev A. I love the Rev A for some of its crunch and the way it squeezes vocals. I think sounds super great. And then into my LA2A tube style compressor, which is the Summit TLA 50. So yeah, when we jump in here in just a second, you'll see all these tracks were compressed on the way in pretty good. I don't think I did any compression on any of the tracks in Pro Tools because they were so heavily compressed on the way in. I like to have that mix ready sound going into Pro Tools. It cuts out a lot of the work later. It helps you get into the fun stuff of mixing vocals instead of worrying about gain staging or picking a compressor later on. So we're going to jump in and we're going to start in the chorus because I think it's the most important part of the song, but also maybe the most straightforward. Because there's no harmonies in the song, I thought it was important to have a pretty stacked up sound, splitting grit and clean singing into 2 tracks. Well, into 4 tracks really, 2 sets of 2, which is chorus main and dub and chorus wide. I'll show you what they both sound like.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
That's the gritty takes, and then we have the wide takes.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
And together.
I feel like I'm digging my grave.
So let's see what these vocals sound like straight out of the vocal chain.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
Like I said, I want that completed vocal sound right out of the vocal chain. So we started with decap.
I feel like I'm digging my grave.
We're only doing 1 on the drive knob, and we're mixed at 67%. So this isn't doing a ton, but I love the way decap sounds in my voice. I think it helps push it through a mix. A little EQ. When I'm digging in on decap, even though we're not doing a whole lot, some of this low stuff builds up. 2.5, 1.5 are trouble areas for me, so I'm cutting those out. Doing some low cutting, even though on my preamp, I probably have it at 150 high pass. We're just doing a little more. And I cut some high end, which is kind of interesting here. But when you're in a song and you're mixing it up against synth and up against distorted guitars, this kind of thing happens where you just do it and it sounds good and you move on. We have Vintage Verb, 2 seconds. It is put at 0 right now because in the dropout of the song, I took all of the wet effects out, and then when it drops back, we're at 10%.
I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
And our pre-delay is set 375, which is a quarter note. So we're getting a delay of a quarter note, and then the reverb is playing out, which gives you a little of a delay effect and then keeps your reverb out of the way. And our dub track, starting with Echo Boy, again, 0 until it drops. This is much heavier at almost 30%. CQ, boosting high end. Maybe this is where we're making up for the main track having a little less. And then 2.5 down. And de-esser. I don't like my S's from my dub tracks and my harmony tracks, even though there are none of those in this, to step on the S sounds from my main track. So I'm typically de-essing them pretty hard. 8 dB.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
together.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
So we're getting some delay here. We're going to get some more reverb from the wide track, which is our cleaner singing. Cutting more low end, more of this 2.5, really making this sit in the mix.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
We have a healthy volume dip here. And then vintage verb, 20%. Like I said, getting some more verb here. So all together.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
You have the gritty tracks tight in the middle, and then you have the bigger tracks wider. And that gives the big sound. Like when you're hearing vocals and it's very wide sounding, yeah, it'll be main takes, but it's also harmonies and stuff that are contributing to that width. So we're doing that without harmonies.
I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
And then the switch up happens for the line over and over again.
Over and over again, over and over again.
The dubs and the wide track are mixed the same.
Over and over again, over and over again.
But the main take sounds like this.
Over and over again, over and over again.
And it's really heavily distorted like that because I want to create a little difference in the mix. I want something for your ear to catch. Wait, that's different. So we're really cranking up Decapitator. On Punish, mix is way up at 88%. Valhalla Space Modulator, which is a free plugin if you own something else of theirs. And that just gives something to make this line pop.
I feel like I can't escape. Over and over again, over and over again.
And then another important part of this chorus is the chorus delay throws.
My grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways. I feel like I can't escape.
We have this gap here and we're creating something interesting to go into it. The way I did it is I printed down the clean singing tracks, did a little altar boy,
Grave.
giving a little of that low end punch.
Ways.
We'll do Valhalla and our Decapitator.
Ways.
So you can see it's a little distorted, a little wet, putting our Echo Boy on to give that half note jump.
In my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways. I feel like I can't escape.
And then the very last part of this chorus, I say grave. And the whole chorus is written with the idea that this would be a vocal synthy sounding thing. And I basically ran it through Isotope, Vocal Synth 2, 6 times, and just kind of created 3 sets of sounds. And when you stack them up,
I've been digging my grave.
gives you that cool synthy sound. The last thing I wanted to touch on with this chorus is in the last chorus. There is a guitar solo happening. And the vocals are still going through this part, but I don't want them to fight with the guitar solo and I don't want them to sit on top of it. So what I did is I took the reverb and I cranked it up to maybe 50 or 60%. That pre-delay that was creating the quarter note delay, I don't want anymore for this. To kind of help it still sit away, I've cranked the attack up so the reverb's not blasting right away.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways. I feel like I can't escape.
And you can see abrupt cut right here for where over and over again comes in. The wide track also does this automation and is volume trimmed down almost 10 decibels.
I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
Our mix knob's cranked all the way to 100. The last thing we added for this is I added some screams.
Digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways. I feel like I can't escape.
So we split this into 2 tracks. Let's hear it straight off the vocal chain.
Digging my grave. Stuck in my ways.
Little altar boy, 30%.
Digging my grave. Stuck in my ways.
So just getting a little bit of that chaotic sound. Decapitator going wild again.
Digging my grave. Stuck in my ways.
So you can see mixes at 100%. We're cutting a bunch of highs out, cutting a bunch of lows out. Another thing I don't want to fight in the mix. I don't want it to sit on top of my main vocal. I want it to blend in with it.
Digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways.
And then the other thing that'll help is this EQ, cutting more top, cutting more bottom.
I'm digging my
So you're hearing it, it's definitely there, but it's not sitting on top. Also left 24, just taking it a little out of the center. And then the second track is a double, but what we're doing is decap always. 100% wet reverb to get this over the top wet sound. So that when you put them together, you get this. It's essentially like a reverb send for your vocal, but you're doing it on a track and you're doing it with a double. Who knows? I probably tracked 2 and just did it in the moment. So it is what it is. So yeah, that's all of the chorus vocals. Let's move into the verse. So in this first part of the verse, we essentially have 2 things. We have the low vocals and we have the high vocals where I jump an octave. Let's listen to this right out of the vocal chain.
Cross into decade 3. Can't keep apart my nostalgia and anxiety.
So what you have to know about this is you can't just affect vocals differently and expect a totally different sound. If you listen to the way I performed this, it's more breathy, it's more softly sung, and that stuff adds up when you're trying to make vocal effects. First, EQ. I probably ran this before Decapitator to help clear up a little bit of that low end. Punish on, mix 100%. I don't want the full spectrum of sound coming through on my verses typically. I like a little bit of a lo-fi sound. Cutting some low end, cutting a bunch of high end.
Cross into decade 3. Can't keep apart my nostalgia and anxiety.
And then we're going to EQ it even more. Cutting way more high end, cutting more low end.
Cross into decade 3.
And shaping that vocal to be how we want. And then a little bit of Echo Boy.
Can't keep apart my nostalgia and anxiety. What's wrong with me?
I like that slappy sound for delay for verses. And the important delay is here, the delay throw. A whole note, so we're getting that long delay. I moved it out of the way, 45 to the right, decap always, and space modulator coming back.
Cross into decade 3. Can't keep apart my nostalgia and anxiety. What's wrong with me?
So you're creating this tension by leaving these gaps and not filling the whole song, but then you're refilling the gaps with these delay throws. When we move into the high vocals, let's listen to the way those sound out of the vocal chain.
I bite my tongue to feel something. Then I ask why you bail on me.
Then we're going to do a lot of the same stuff. We moved up an octave, so the muddiness we needed to clear up is a little higher. Decap, I believe, is the same settings, but a volume bump. EQ, we're opening up. So here, we're clamped down a little bit more. Here, we're opening up. As the song is building, as you're building up, you're building how much of the spectrum of frequencies you're letting through.
I bite my tongue to feel something.
A little more delay now as well. We have this dub.
Then I ask why you bail on me.
Which is mixed just like this, but only up to decap.
Then I ask why you bail on me.
And then these other 2 lines have this layer.
I bite my tongue to feel something.
Straight out of the vocal chain.
I bite my tongue to feel something.
What I did for these is I backed all the way as far as I could get from the mic in my vocal room, and I think I even faced different directions to kind of mimic the way a group vocal would sound if sung all together. And another part of that is I didn't tune any of these.
I bite my tongue to feel something. I bite my tongue to feel something. I bite my tongue to feel something. I bite my tongue to feel something.
They're rough. They're not the same. But sometimes you don't want to encroach on that same note space. You want to spread them out a little bit. You get maximum width doing that instead of tuning them all the same.
I bite my tongue to feel something.
So we're getting that real group vocal sound, a little EQ, a little reverb, and a little delay because I want to accentuate that roomy sound. And then this is kind of a room node probably that I found in my room.
I bite my tongue to feel something. Then I ask why you bail on me. What's the worst that could happen?
So yeah, you're creating an interesting sound in another way. Instead of just throwing to a reverb and getting the effect that way, you have this roomy vocal reverbed out, and it's an untuned roomy vocal. It just gives you another sound, something interesting for the listener. And then the very last thing is I say remove myself from reality, and we play on the word reality here.
Remove myself from reality.
With this effect. The way I did it is, it's mixed the exact same as the verse, but I added these
From reality.
little Ultra Boys. So first we went down,
From reality.
then we pitch that blend up,
From reality.
then we pitch that back down.
From reality.
And it just gives you that like hyper real, weird sound. Together, it sounds like this.
Remove myself from reality.
I'm going to keep saying it, but you want to create something interesting for your listener to hear. So that was my little something. Right after that, I scream, yeah, going into the next part. And it's very wet. I wanted this to carry, so here's right out of the vocal chain. Decap hitting hard, always. And then a big old echo boy. I wanted this to carry over these next lines. So the dub, decap again, big reverb, super massive. And together,
The worst part's the thought you won't miss me.
back to this higher octave sound. The EQ is really opened up now, though. Again, we're building throughout the song. We're opening up how much of the frequency range we're hearing. Decap, a little heavier. And then we have these delay throws. We have a left and a right. The left is this whole second half of the line.
The worst part's the thought you won't miss me. You won't miss me. You won't miss me.
I did that and I didn't think it was quite enough, so I also threw just the word me, the very last word.
The worst part's the thought you won't miss me.
So that when you put them together, you have this more interesting delay throw.
The worst part's the thought you won't miss me. You won't miss me. You won't miss me.
The very last thing I say is supposed to be like a telephone effect. It's the only thing on this track in the entire song.
Wait, why am I even thinking that?
Lil Alter Boy going the down effect, big decap with a lot of cut, and then an EQ to hone in on that like 1K telephony effect.
Wait, why am I even thinking that?
And that's really it. So let's take a listen to all of the vocals through the chorus.
Crossed into decade 3. Can't keep apart my nostalgia and anxiety. What's wrong with me? For a brief second I thought maybe I'd never leave. I bite my tongue to feel something. Then I ask why you bail on me. What's the worst that could happen? Remove myself from reality. The worst part's the thought you won't miss me. I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm stuck in my ways. I feel like I can't escape. Over and over again, over and over again. I feel like I'm digging my grave. I feel like I'm buried in shame. I feel like I can't escape. Over and over again, over and over again. I've been digging my grave.
So you can see when we're looking at the totality of this session how many tracks there are, and it might seem like a lot, but we've split everything into different tracks that we like. The low vocal is mixed one way, the high vocal is mixed another way. You're not compromising just to cut down track count. I'm not scared of doing 20, 30 or more tracks of vocals. If that's what it takes to get the vocal sound I want, there's no reason to box yourself in. And yeah, that wraps up my whole series on my band song, Grave. If you go down in the description, you can follow my band on YouTube and on Instagram. We've dropped a couple new songs since this song. I would love for you to go check them out and listen to them.
Down, quit wasting your time. Find beauty in life. Our clock is ticking and ticking.
And if there's any more questions you have about this song, about the vocals, or anything else, leave a comment. Subscribe to my channel so that you can stay up to date with all the videos I'm going to post this year. So with this song done, I'll see you in the next video.